Assalamu alaikum, valued listeners. Once again, from the platform of Kashana-e-Baseerat, I, Nikat Raza, is here to bring to you the reading of Fatima is Fatima by Dr. Ali Shariyati. Dear listeners, we are today beginning from the next subtitle of chapter 16, where we had left last time. Now the subtitle is, Where is his sword? What has happened to the famous sword of her husband, Ali? Whenever he returned from battle, it was full of blood, was given to her along with the sword of the Prophet. Ali would say to her in a voice full of honor, glory and pride, Fatima, wash these. Now he is becoming lifeless, and after 10 years of constant struggle, he is laying down in bed. She also sees that they are attacking Ali's house, but he does not leave his silent corner. Thus, in the battlefield where the Prophet could not succeed, Ali, the warrior, the champion who gave glory to the field of battle, has been defeated, and Fatima is alone. What can she do? Always fighting in the battlefront, he is more severe and causes more misery than the front in which the external enemy is standing opposite him. Now a battle has begun where Abu Lahab, Abu Jahl, Abu Sufyan, Hind and Utbah, Umayyah, Ibn Khalaf and Akrama are not opposite him. These visages are well known as lacking any respect or human desires. It is obvious that they fight only to protect their power, interests, force, strength, business caravans, slave markets, and not because of poverty, spiritual meaning, faith, and human wishes. It's a battle between despotism and revolution, slavery and freedom, captivity and salvation, humiliation and lordship, purity and filth. Finally, it is a war against the guardian of ignorance and darkness in human disguise by the messenger of awareness and enlightenment. What is it? On one side is Ali and Fatima, as it was in Makkah, Badr, Uhud, Khaybar, Fatah, and Hunain. But on the other side, it is Abu Bakr, the first person who, outside the Prophet's home, joins him, his friends, his companions on the migration, and the father of his wife. A person who gives him friendship when the Prophet has no one and is alone, who spends all of his wealth in the way of Prophet. And as a result, in Medina, he is as poor as it is said that he had to work for Jews and strange and despised people. He was a person whom people had seen for 23 years, that is, from the first year of the mission of the Prophet until the death of the Prophet, beside the Prophet. And Umar, the 40th person who in the hidden shelter of the Prophet accepted Islam. With his joining and that of Hamza, the first few weak friends gained power, and it appeared among the people to announce Islam. From that time on, he gave all of his power towards the progress of movement. He is from among the closest friends and most distinguished of the emigrants of the Prophet. He was the father of Hafsa, one of the other wives of the Prophet, and people accept him as one of the leaders and great companions of the Prophet of God. Usman, an emigrant who had made 2 emigrations in the way of Islam, was the son-in-law of the Prophet who had married 2 daughters of the Prophet. He has an eye-catching, sacred personality, and he belonged to the 2 of the great families of the Quraysh. He had a great wealth which is distributed amongst the poor friends of the Prophet and had actively participated in social services and helped the people a great deal. The masses of the people call upon him as one of the companions, great emigrants, friend and family of the Prophet. And Khalid bin Walid, who is a hero in the religious struggles against the enemies of Islam. At the Battle of Mota, when he was a simple soldier, he breaks 9 swords over the heads of Romans. He is known as the Sword of God. Amr al-As is one of the 4 famous Arab geniuses who had become a Muslim many years before. He showed the power of Islam to the Emperor of Rome and the northern borders. Saad ibn Waqas, the first person who in Islam fires an arrow at an enemy, takes Muslims from the position of defense and shows them how to attack. He shows the enemies what attack is all about. And at the Battle of Uhud, he carefully released several arrows and saved the life of the Prophet, who was in great danger. He had defended himself so bravely that the Prophet praised him. There are many, many more, including great emigrants, helpers, all the army, leaders and builders of the foundation of Islam, and closest friends and pioneers of the Prophet amongst them. Their slogan is Islam, and their slogan, not idol worship, disbelief, polytheism, myths, protection of the business of the Quraysh, nor the nobility of the tribe, but establishment of unity and the spread of Islam, the gathering and the propagation of the Quran, piety, the negating of the gathering of wealth and gold, helping people seeking the satisfaction of God, and implementation of religious law, and finally, the putting of the Prophet's traditions into effect, and most important of all, promoting unity and the uniting of Muslims. In the beginning of this, a right is easily and quietly disregarded. The rights of Ali. How? Very easily and with a very understandable logic, because of the sympathy towards the community and because of the fate of Islam and the danger of internal rebellion, the pressure of the foreign enemies and the fear of separation amongst the Muslims, and in short, it is because it is advisable for the moment. A young man, 30-some years old, often harsh, whose background does not stand well with the majority, they are jealous of him. His behavior is of a type that causes the influential, effective personalities and groups to not be optimistic towards him. It is still too soon for Ali. It's not advisable for Islam at the moment. Yes, advisability. The inauspicious blow which is always used against the truth. The advisability, a sword used by clever people to sacrifice the truth. It is done in accordance with the divine law. The Qibla hand say, in the name of God, a clean and pure sacrifice, a permissible meat. How simple, without any noise, without any understanding, without anyone who are asleep, awakening, without the people rebelling, without anyone to bring awareness to the people, without anyone being able to distinguish the rights which are asleep under the blows of the advisability, they silently die and are forgotten. Finally, without any effort or protest, to be able to save the truth and stand against the power which is armed with visibility, the strength, cries, protests, moanings, Even objections of Fatima go unheeded. Where a society is covered under invisibility, nothing can be done. The greatest tragedy in human history takes place. It is a silent and defenseless tragedy which sacrifices Ali and Fatima, and later on we see their successors, and one by one, Ali, all of their posterity. Fatima sensed had begun. Fatima sensed it has begun, and she could do nothing about it. Suddenly she felt the exhaustion of a whole lifetime of resistance, bearing of miseries patiently, tortures, poverty, difficulties, and the bitterness of life. She becomes convinced that all has been lost. She senses that she can do nothing to keep what the Prophet could not keep and what Ali could not protect. All of the nights become blurred in her eyes, nights which come successively. Her father, during the last days of his life, gave news of it to her. The time has come. What will happen tomorrow? What will become of the great efforts of her father in the cold winds of policy and advisability which have now begun? What is the future of this young community? Into which hands will the future of these people fall whose fate is to be sacrificed because of the policy? The smell of aristocracy, nobility, and tribal ties once again has arisen. Allegiance replaces the commandment. How can the votes of the tribes who elect their leader or Quraysh who elect their elders be more acceptable than the vote of the Prophet? What kind of people are these who at Saqifa first give their allegiance to Saad and then with one word from Abu Bakr give their allegiance to him? Do they have sufficient growth and awareness so that the Prophet does not need to interfere in their politics? These people are the people of the Prophet's city who have lived near him and next to him. Fear for the future of Islam. They have performed the jihad together. They have learned of Islam from the Prophet, but they have chosen Abu Bakr. Tomorrow, when Islam spreads beyond Medina and this generation passes, what fate will this allegiance bring to the leader of the people? Who will vote and who will be chosen? Now that the most sacrificed visages of the emigrants and helpers of the Prophet of the first generation of Islam and the pioneers of faith have put Ali aside because of the policy and he is forced to sit in his home, what will tomorrow's generation do to my children? What will tomorrow's policies be when people have not grown up in the atmosphere of faith, piety and jihad? Even now the future of Hassan, Hussein, Zainab can be seen, and one can be certain what their future will be. The beginning of Ali staying at home is the beginning of the frightening and bloody history. The allegiance of Saqifa, which began quietly and cleverly, will be followed by bloody allegiances, and the problem of Fadak will be beginning of extortions and oppressions of tomorrow. Tomorrow is black, frightening, and bloody. Successive tomorrows will bring plunder, murders, and torture. The caliphate of tomorrow will be a great tragedy to Islam and serious tragedy to humanity. But now, what can be done? Fatima does everything for her strength will allow to try and see what the first stone which is laid is not laid crooked. She can do nothing. She senses that the ears of the Medina of the Prophet are deaf to her cries. Her heart is made heavy by the silence of Ali, a silence which would cause any heart which has any feeling, who understands Ali and knows the times to heat up and burn. How difficult and merciless is selfishness to be able to express itself with faith, particularly when it is armed with policy. It causes the faithful and devoted companions to sacrifice the rights of the people and to kill Ali's rights. Fatima is exhausted after a lifetime of bearing patiently the weight of the mission of her father and the difficulty of resistance which faced with the ignorance of her tribe. With a lifetime from the beginning to end full of torture, danger, poverty, and efforts because the wishes are far from the despots of time. In the misery of mourning for the death of her father, whose life has been mixed with hers and saddened by the unbearable fate of Ali, who, after a lifetime of jihad with the enemy, is forced to sit at home by the hand of a friend, not that of an enemy. He is the sacrifice of a force which has become into existence with the power of his faith, sword, sacrifice, and sincerity. She is defeated and without hope. She falls to her knees as her last efforts puts forth to get back Ali's rights proves fruitless. It is not only further efforts which is difficult, but she finds the bearing of it patiently to be impossible, not for that which was going on outside, but rather patiently bearing what she sees within her home, and finally the bearing patiently of the frightening silence which is taking over the house neighboring her house of the Prophet. Now the window is also closed, the window from which every day would open unto hers, where they would smile at each other, where kindness and faith would fall upon the simple house of Fatima. Now one of those windows is closed. Death closed it forever upon Fatima. Politics closed the one in her own home. She is now imprisoned in this house, next to Ali, who sits like a mountain of sorrow and is silent. It is a silence which holds the fire of a volcano within itself. He reads in the innocent and sorrowful faces of the children of the Prophet the frightening fate of the tomorrow of each one of them. To remain alive is too painful and unbearable for her. To remain is a heavy load. It is a load which is too heavy for the tired shoulders of Fatima to bear. Heavy time slowly moves upon her wounded heart and passes by her. Every moment, every minute, and every step is heavy and slow. She seeks out the soil of her father's grave. This is the next subtitle in the chapter, and we begin with it. Now the only meaning she finds in life is the kind soil of her father's grave and the hopeful news he gave her when he said, "Fatima, you will be the first person to join me from among my family." But when? What an exciting anticipation! Her suffering spirit, like a wounded bird whose wings have been broken, is imprisoned and impatient from three sides: the silent and sorrowful visage of her husband, the saddened faces of her children, and the silent, cold earth upon her father in the corner of Aisha's house. Whenever the pain in her heart increases and she loses her breath from the crying, she senses that she is in need of the kindness and condolences of her father. She seeks him out. She falls upon the silent earth of her father. She stares at his grave, and suddenly it is as if she just heard of the death of her father for the first time. She cries out. She pushes her fingers into the earth. She fills her empty hands with it. She tries to see behind the curtain of tears. She puts the earth upon her face, and with all of the emotions through which she loved her father, she smells it, and for a moment she is at peace. She has found condolence. But suddenly, in a tone which breaks with tears, she says, "Anyone who smells the earth of Ahmed, that is Muhammad, has lost nothing, if they never again smell any other musk. O Father, what miseries have fallen upon me after you! If they had fallen upon you upon a bright day, they would turn it into night." Gradually, she would grow silent. The earth of her father's grave pours through her senseless fingers. She looks at it with painful amazement. Then she becomes motionless and silent. She puts all of her sorrows in the death of her father. Each day is like the first day of his death. Her impatience grows every day, and her cries become more painful. The wives of the helpers gather round her and cry with her. The pressure and pain and the wave of sorrows and pressing upon her heart and causing her eyes to bleed. She complains of their extortion and remembers what they did to her and the right they destroyed. Her sorrow is more disturbing than anyone can conceive of. To be able to console her, to ask her to be patient. Nights and days pass like this. The companions have been warned by their powers, richness, and conquering Ali in his sorrows, silent, and Fatima in the thoughts of death. The moment of impatience arrives, the gift her father had promised her. The death of Fatima. Each day that passes, she becomes more impatient for death. The only way she can bear to remain alive is if she could seek refuge in her father and be drawn beside him when her faith and spirit overflow with complaints and pain. What needs does she have to such a refuge, such a peace? But time passes slowly. 95 days have passed since her father promised her death, and death would not come. It came. Today is Monday, the 3rd of Janab-e Syeda, the 11th year of migration, the year of the death of her father. She kisses each one of the children. Hassan is 7, Hussein is 6, Zainab is 5, and Kulsum is 3. And now is the moment to bid farewell to Ali. How difficult it is, and Ali must remain alone in the world for 30 more years. She sends for Rafid to come. She had arranged the Prophet's funeral. She says, "O slave of God, pour water on me so that I may wash myself." With patience and peace, she performs the ablution. Then she puts on the clothes which she had not worn since the death of her father and had put away. It is as if she had put aside the memory of her mourning, and now she is going to see a dear friend. She says to Rafid, "Put my bed in the middle of the room." Softly and quietly she steps into the bed. She faces the Kaaba and she waits. A moment passes. Moments. Suddenly cries are heard within the house. She closes her lids and opens her eyes upon her beloved who is awaiting her. A candle of fire and sorrow is extinguished in Ali's house, and Ali remains alone with his children. She has asked Ali to bury her at night so that no one would recognize her grave and so that 2 elders would not follow her corpse to the grave. Ali did as she had asked, but no one knows how, and they still do not know where, in her home or in the Baqiyya, it's not clear. And where in Baqiyya, it is not clear. That which is clear is the pain of Ali tonight next to the grave of Fatima. Medina is silent in the night. All Muslims are asleep. The night is only broken by the quiet whispering of Ali. Ali is very much alone both in the city and his home, without the Prophet and without Fatima. Like a mountain of pain, he is sitting upon the earth of the grave of Fatima. Hours pass. Night, quiet and silent, listens to the pain of his whispers. Baqiyya is peaceful, fortunate. Medina is without loyalty and impoverished. All remains in silence. The awakened graves and sleeping city listens. The wind of the night takes the sword which flows with difficulty from the spirits of Ali at one side of Fatima's grave towards the house of the Prophet. To you from me and from your daughter, who fell down beside you, and who in such haste joined you. Greetings, O Prophet of God. My patience and my ability have weakened from the fate of your dearest, O Prophet of God. But how can I seek patience with such terrible misfortune and missing you? I placed you in the grave, but you still exist in my heart. We are all from God, and unto God we shall return. But my sorrow is eternal, and my nights sleepless, until God takes me to the same home in which you are now. Right now, your daughter will tell you how tribe joined each other and against her and took away her rights. Insist that she tell you everything that happened. All these things happened even though not much time has passed since your death, and people have not forgotten you. Greetings to both of you. Greetings from a man who has neither anger nor sorrow. He remains silent for a moment. He suddenly senses the exhaustion of a whole lifetime. It is as if with every word which is pulled from the depths of his being, he gives up a part of his existence. He is alone. He does not know what to do. Stay? Return home? How can he leave Fatima here alone? How can he return alone to his home? The city looks like a devil in the darkness of the night. Schemes, treacheries, and shamelessness awaits him. How can he stay? His children, the people, truth, responsibilities, and a heavy mission await him. His pain is so heavy that it destroys his strong spirit. He cannot decide. Hesitation grips his soul. Go, stay. He senses that he is unable to do either. He does not know what he will do. He explains to Fatima, if I leave you, it is not that I do not want to stay near you, and if I stay here, have I not been unfair to the fate that God promises for those who bear patiently? Then he arose, stood, faced the Prophet's house with a state which would overflow if poured into the word feelings. He wants to tell him that he is returning that which had been entrusted to him. Listen to what she says. Ask her to tell you everything precisely. Have her count all the things that she saw after you, one by one. Dear listeners, with this we come to the end of chapter 16, and the next chapter 17 is the epilogue. Fatima lived like this and died like this. After her death, she began a new life in history. Fatima appears as a halo in the visages of all of the oppressed who later become the multitudes of Islam, all of the usurped, extorted, oppressed, sufferers, all of those whose nights have been destroyed and sacrificed by pressure and have been deceived, had the name of Fatima as their slogan. The memory of Fatima grew with love, emotions, and wonderful faith of the men and women who throughout the history of Islam fought for freedom and justice. Throughout the centuries, they were nourished under the merciless and bloody lashes of the caliphates. Their cries and angers grew and overflowed from their wounded hearts. This is why in the history of all Muslim nations and among all deprived masses of the Islamic community, Fatima is the source of the inspiration for freedom, the desire of that which is right, the seekers of justice, the resistors of oppression, cruelty, crime, and discrimination. It is most difficult to speak about her personality of Fatima. Fatima is the woman that Islam wants a woman to be. The concept of her visage is painted by the Prophet himself. He melted her and made her pure in the fire of difficulties, poverty, resistance, deep understanding, and the wonder of humanity. She is a symbol in all of the various dimensions of being a woman, by the symbol of a daughter when facing her father, the symbol of a wife when facing her husband, the symbol of a mother when facing her children, the symbol of a responsible fighting woman when facing her time and the fate of her society. She herself is an imam, a grief that is an outstanding example of someone to follow, an ideal type of woman, and one who bears witness to any woman who wishes to become herself during her own choice. Who bears witness to any woman and who wishes to become herself through her own choice. She answers the questions of how to be a woman with her wonderful childhood, her constant struggling and resisting on two fronts, inside and out, in the home of her father, in the home of her husband, and in society, in her thoughts and behavior in her life. I do not know what to say. I have said a great deal. Still much remains unsaid. In the expression of all the amazing aspects of the great spirit of Fatima, that which causes the most wonderful in me is that Fatima is the traveling companion, steps in the same steps, flies together with the great spirit of Ali through the ascension of humanity towards completeness and the stage of the descent of the spirit of the psyche. She is not just a wife to Ali. Ali looked upon her as a friend who was familiar with his pains and his great wishes. She was his endless refuge, the one who listened to his secrets. She was the only companion of his loneliness. This is why Ali looked at her with another look, and also at her children. After Fatima, Ali took other wives and he had children from them. But from the beginning, he separates the children who were from Fatima from his other children. The latter are called Banu Ali, that is, sons of Ali, and the former Banu Fatima, the children of Fatima. Isn't it strange When face to face with their father and he, Ali, the children are related to Fatima. And we saw that the Prophet also saw her with different eyes. From among all of his daughters, he would only discipline Fatima. He only relies upon her from an early age. And she accepted the great invitation. I do not know what to say about her, how to say it. I wanted to imitate the French writer who was speaking one day in a conference about the Virgin Mary. He said, for 1700 years, all of the speakers have spoken of Mary. For 1700 years, all philosophers and thinkers of various nations of the East and the West have spoken about the values of Mary. For 1700 years, the poets of the world have expressed all of their creative efforts and power in the praise of Mary. For 1700 years, all of the painters and artists have offered wonderful works of art showing the visage and the status of Mary. But the totality of all that has been said, thought, and the efforts of all of the artists throughout all of these many centuries were not able to sufficiently describe the greatness of Mary as these words. Mary was the mother of Jesus Christ. And I wanted to begin in this manner with Fatima. I got stuck. I wished to say, Fatima is the daughter of the great Khadija. I sensed it is not Fatima. I wish to say Fatima is the daughter of Muhammad. I sensed it is not Fatima. I wish to say Fatima is the wife of Ali. I sensed it is not Fatima. I wish to say Fatima is the mother of Hassan and Hussein. I sensed that it is not Fatima. I wish to say Fatima is the mother of Zainab. I still sensed it is not Fatima. No, these are all true, and none of them are Fatima. Fatima is Fatima. Dear readers, with this we come to the end of what Dr. Ali Shariyati has to say in his book, Fatima is Fatima. The reading comes to a close today, and I bid goodbye to you all today. Thank you very much. Khuda Hafiz.